And for this week, we're going to talk about the Queen Mary.
Oh.
Now, in everything I've read, it seems like you're not supposed to put the in front of it, and you're just supposed to say Queen Mary. And I'm not going to do that because that makes my head hurt. So I'm going to use the word the, and I'm sorry if that offends anybody. I'm not really sorry because it sounds weird. It just sounds weird. Because I'm not talking about the Queen. I'm talking about the ship. Yeah. So we're talking about a ship, if you did not know. And the Queen Mary's story begins in 1930 with her construction in Clydebank, Scotland. And it took 4 years to build her, and they had to widen a river for her launch. The legend attached to her naming is that it was an accident. The Cunard directors had planned to name her Victoria in their tradition of naming their ships in an IA. So Victoria would have fit that. So when they asked King George for his blessing of the ship with we have decided to name our new ship after England's greatest queen, the king responded, my wife, Queen Mary, will be delighted that you are naming the ship after her. And that is how, instead of naming her Victoria, she became known as the Queen Mary. I don't know if that's true, but I think that's cute. So her maiden voyage was on May 27th, 1936, and it was super luxurious with 2 indoor swimming pools, 2 cocktail bars, beauty salons, children's nurseries for all 3 classes. Classes being of the ship, there's middle, general, and steerage probably. I don't know. I should know that, but let's go. I know there's a first, and then there's 2 other ones.
There you go.
Yeah. And so there's 2 cocktail bars. There was a music studio, a lecture hall, telephone connectivity to anywhere in the world, which is crazy on a boat during that time. That makes my head hurt a little bit. Outdoor paddle tennis courts, which I'm just wondering, is that ping pong?
It's probably closer to pickleball.
Yeah. And
early pickleball.
And early pickleball. Fucking pickleball. And there was fancy air conditioning in a lot of places. The ship also had a Jewish prayer room, mainly as a fuck you to the anti-Semitism growing in Nazi Germany, which is kind of like in the main cabin class dining room. There was a map of the transatlantic crossing with 2 tracks with the winter spring routes, which were further south because of icebergs, and the summer autumn route. And during the crossing, a small motorized model of the Queen Mary would travel along the mural to show the ship's progress. I would just be in front of that thing all day.
That's funny. I like that.
Yeah. But the fanciness of the Queen Mary is not why we are talking about her, or frankly, why you have ever heard of her in the first place. We know the Queen Mary because it is haunted as fuck. And on the day the RMS Queen Mary launched, Lady Mabel Fortescue Harrison, a well-known British psychic, is quoted as predicting, the Queen Mary will know her greatest fame and popularity when she never sails another mile or carries another fare-paying passenger.
Oh.
So is the Queen Mary haunted? Or is it all just one big corporate scam and I'm about to ruin something else fun for you? Okay, so first let me say I have stayed on the Queen Mary. I have done their haunted tour. The scariest thing I saw were the blisters on my feet after walking up and down all the stairs. That ship is massive. But I saw nothing of the paranormal sort during my visit. No ghosties. Sad. Very sad. I wanted them to come out and they said no. So, and let's talk about death, right? So if there's ghosts, there's generally going to be death. To make the ghost. And there have been numerous deaths on the ship, as to be expected for something that was in service for as long as this was. It operated as a liner from 1936 through 1967. According to Bill Winberg, an archivist for the Queen Mary, the death count since she launched in 1936 was 47. However, that doesn't include the first recorded death, which happened before the launch even happened, when during construction, a worker named John Brown fell to his death from a scaffold. The first death at sea occurred on its maiden voyage on the return trip when Arthur John Francis Goldberg fractured his skull while scrubbing the decks on June 8th, 1836, and he was buried at sea.
Yikes.
Yeah, and that number also does not include the number of those who died during the Queen Mary's service during World War II, when soldiers were literally just dying from heat. We know that during this period, there is a burial at sea every 4 hours, said Wittenberg. Apparently, soldiers would also just jump off the ship when it left the dock, and those men may have died too or made it back to shore. Basically, conscripted people were like, I don't want to do this, bye, and jumped off. During the war, the ship was painted gray and became known as the Gray Ghost. They took out everything that was unnecessary. So it was a total of 6 miles of carpet, 120 cases of china, crystal, and silver services, tapestries, and paintings were all removed. So it's amazing if you see the size of the ship. Just imagine how much stuff they took out in order to convert this. And she became one of the fastest troop ships in the war, and the U-boats could not catch her. The Grey Ghost made the record for the most passengers ever transported on one vessel when they carried 15,740 soldiers and 943 crew. So for a total of 16,683 people on one fucking boat at one time. And that was in July of 1943. Churchill would hitch rides on her and listed on the passengers as Colonel Warden. He even signed the D-Day Declaration on board, so he was on there quite a bit. The Queen Mary covered over 600,000 miles across the world's oceans by the end of the war, carrying more than 800,000 troops. The one story about her wartime life that would definitely influence the haunting legends happened when Queen Mary sank one of her escort ships, the HMS Curaçao. It's Curacoa. And I'm just saying, like, that's how I pronounce the drink.
Yeah, Curacao, but with a
Curaçao, yeah. So 338 lives were lost. What happened is the captain of each ship thought they had the right of way. The Queen Mary was moving in an evasive zigzag pattern in order to keep the U-boats from getting her. And Commodore Sir Cyril Gordon Illingworth, commanding Queen Mary, maintained the zigzag pattern, anticipating that the cruiser was going to alter its course. However, Captain John Wilford Boutwood of the Curaçao held fast to the liner's mean course, prioritizing the defense of the liner against potential enemy aircraft. So that's what he was like, well, this is my mission, so I'm going to stick to that. So the Queen Mary sliced it in half. But it didn't stop due to the risk of U-boat attacks. It was told stop for nothing. So they sliced through this cruiser and kept going. Oof. Boats were later sent to conduct a rescue, but only 101 crew members survived. And to top it all off, it was kept secret until after the war. Everyone involved was sworn to secrecy. After the war, there was a trial, and the blame was totally put on Curaçao's officers. However, that was appealed and modified, so 2/3 went to them and 1/3 went to Cunard. So... Wow. The most infamous death is probably that of John Petter, a young quote-unquote greaser who was caught in a watertight door number 13. He was split in half in 1966.
Wait, a greaser was caught in door number 13?
Yes. Let's go with that.
Okay, go ahead.
Yeah, the final recorded death was on the ship's last voyage in 1967 when Leonard Horsburgh, a fish cook, had heat stroke and died. So those are kind of an overview of the deaths, but I want to remember no official deaths have ever been recorded in either of the pools, and there are no reports of there ever being dismembered bodies. Okay, so keep that in mind as we talk about the ghosts. According to usghostadventures.com, there are said to be up to 150 ghosts on the ship. One of that is said to be that of John Petter, the bisected crew member. After his death, there have been reports of frightened guard dogs, shadow figures, metallic sounds like a door slamming shut, and apparitions which are said to match old photographs of John Petter.
Okay.
At the front of the ship, the side of the collision with the Curaçao, witnesses have reported hearing sounds like metal crushing, frantic banging against the hull, men screaming, and the unmistakable sound of rushing water. The engine room is said to have an apparition of a man who fades into the metal of the pipes. People have said that sounds appear to follow him around. There have also been cold spots reported. And the engine room is just creepy because it's a giant fucking engine room. And those things, like, it's really dark and there's just really big machinery all around you and pipes and things that I don't know what the fuck they do. And like the big knobby turn things that you're not supposed to turn, and like doors that go places. You want to touch everything, but you can't touch because you know it's all hot. And, you know, even if it's just sitting there, it's not doing anything. But yeah. So I can't imagine what it was like when it was actually running as an engine. So it's natural that it just sounds like it's haunted. And frankly, like even if you're on a regular cruise ship now and you go down to the engine room, like those all kind of feel like they're haunted.
They're creepy.
Yeah. So up at the bridge, people have seen
it's dark and industrial and damp and hot and
just noises you don't know, right?
Yeah.
Lots of ding 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 dings. So up at the bridge, people have seen apparitions of ship officers, which appear briefly, then they dissolve into the mist. So the pools have had a ton of reported activity, although, as I said earlier, nobody was reported to ever having died in either. One of the most famous ghosts is a little girl who haunts the pool area. She is known as Jackie. We came into the pool area and I heard giggling, the sound of a little girl playing in the area. And at that point, I noticed there was splashing, said Kathy Love, a maintenance supervisor on the ship. The splashing stopped, the giggling continued, and we observed the wet footprints of a small child walking across the locker room. I know that I saw what I saw. I saw what I saw. I'm not sure exactly why I saw it, but I know it was there. Also, the psychic Peter James has recordings of a 10-minute conversation with Jackie. Some psychics have suggested...
long conversation.
Yeah, it's pretty long. You can go on YouTube and listen to it. There's also a really popular thing to do YouTube videos on the Queen Mary. It's really popular. So some psychics have suggested that the pools are vortexes for spirits. Because when you look at them, at least one of them is closed off. One of them you could only see for a few minutes. And you could only see it because like the floor is caving in. And so they're just like they only let a few people go out at a time. And so I'm like, I think that's where the energy is coming from because I was terrified I was going to fall through the floor. And so maybe that's what's creating the vortex, right? It's just all people are like, please don't let me fall through this floor. But
life is flashing before their eyes and they're freaking creating a weird moment.
But again, also dark, empty swimming pools always look haunted. I feel like they do. There's just something about an empty swimming pool. And so there also is the ghost haunting of Sir Winston's restaurant. There's a man there known as the Dude, but not Lebowski Dude. This spirit is described as appearing in a top hat and tails with slick back hair. I really want you to see this one. He's most often seen near the bar where he reportedly has cleared his throat to get attention before vanishing into a nearby wall, which I just think that's a cheeky ghost and I like it. See me! And then bye.
Bye.
What?
Yeets out. He's
like,
did you see me or not?
Look at me! Okay, bye. And speaking of Sir Winston, people have seen Winston Churchill's ghost near his private quarters and on the promenade, on the sun and sports decks. And the smell of cigar smoke is often reported near his room and on the M deck. People have reported seeing shadow people everywhere. They look like, shadow people. Also, there are ghost cats. I'm very sad that I did not get to see one of those.
Oh, ghost cats.
Ghost cats. The changing rooms near the pools are noted for numerous EVPs featuring meows. And ghosts and people have guests have reported sensations of something invisible brushing up against their legs. Now, the room that is hyped as the most haunted is B340. And it's quite possible the haunting of that room is entirely due to Disney. And to understand that, we're going to have to talk about what happened to Queen Mary after she retired from being a cruise liner. So first, it retires in 1967. Then it opens as an aquarium museum that was curated by Jacques Cousteau. And that lasted only a few years due to apparently poor treatment of the sea life and mismanagement. Not Jacques Cousteau, which is very upsetting. Like, I don't want to know. I was one of those things where it's like, I just saw that sentence.
We're not. Next thing.
I'm not diving into that one any further. I don't want to know. No pun intended. And apparently there was also mismanagement of funds, continued to change hands. Pacific Southwest Airlines owned it, then Hyatt, and then the Rather Corporation. In 1988, Disney acquired the Queen Mary when they bought the Rather Corporation to try to get the Disneyland Hotel. And at first they didn't know what they were going to do with the ship. In 1990, Disney announced they were going to open Port Disney with hotels, a monorail, and theme park. So this would be on Long Beach, right? And that would never happen. But what did happen was the uptick of ghost stories about the ship. Recognizing a cash cow, Disney offered the first ghost tours. They created the sick tour called Haunted Passages, which included a tour brochure that had a small child being drugged down a hallway by a ghost.
That's something.
That is something to put on a brochure, and it makes me want to go. So, from a San Francisco Gate article, the tour took you to areas where people were murdered, crushed, drowned, or otherwise died during passage. Todd James Pierce, host of the DHI podcast and author of several books on Disney.
That's so crazy.
Yeah,
I remember I swear I saw it as a kid. It would have been late 80s, early 90s, so I'm trying to piece the timeline together.
Yeah, so a stop on that tour was B340, a then unused room where Disney installed Haunted Mansion style effects. And when you were in the room, floorboards would creak, faucets would turn on, disembodied voices would sound, and spooky things would appear in mirrors. The Haunted Passages tour was an attempt to more formally and theatrically build on some of the ghost legends related to the ship, Pierce explained. The tour was promoted with the ghostly image of John Patter's translucent body, a young engineer crushed on the ship, still standing in the boiler room, much in the way that ghosts in the Haunted Mansion appear as effective lighting and well-placed. Disney ditched the...
Y'all can't see me if you're just listening to this. My jaw is like on the floor.
Yeah, I had no idea about any of this. If I did know this, I forgot it, and I don't think I knew this.
I forgot that. Yeah,
Disney ditched.
You just went there a couple of years ago.
I went there in 2024.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. It was recent.
But my books that I bought there during this are in boxes. So, anyways, so Disney ditched the Port Disney idea in 1992, and the room B340 was sealed up, only to have its legend grow. And maybe if people think something is haunted enough, then it becomes haunted. The paranormal researcher Greg Newkirk said, even though the haunted attraction at the Queen Mary is long gone, the memories remain. Over time, these memories can turn into legends, stripping away the fictional origins one retelling at a time. And eventually, legends can turn into actual hauntings. Because there are very specific stories that are being repeated over and over again, and people are concentrating on these stories. And maybe that's enough to create these entities or hauntings, right? That's what's drawing up all these people almost. Yeah. So that's one possibility. The current B340 is decorated with scary pics and a Ouija board to hype it up even more.
Of course it is.
And so the ship is now owned by the city of Long Beach. And it offers numerous paranormal tours and now even has Jackie's Spirit Shop in the third-class dining lounge where you can buy spooky items like Mad Libs and hand soap, and those products are available online. I would like to say the idea for Port Disney was not entirely abandoned. They were later incorporated into Tokyo Disney Sea, which was completed in 2001. And that park notably features a model of the Queen Mary. There is a replica of the Queen Mary in Tokyo. That's so wild. The whole the Tokyo Disney Sea itself is a mind fuck. It is a whole bunch of different islands and it's all at sea. And now I just want to go to, Tokyo Disney Sea and go to the Queen Mary on. And there's a Tower of Terror on that island. Okay, so that's the story of the Queen Mary, the other haunted Scottish ship. And like I said,
Tattoo and Rockabilly Festival there too.
Anything like that had that many people on it, if you think about energy at all, if you think that has anything to do with hauntings, and that seems like a pretty all that in leftover shit, right? I don't know. So it carries. There is definitely a feeling on the ship, whether or not I didn't feel any ghost feelings, but there's definitely that weight of history and the weight of somewhat of the tragedy, but also just kind of how impressive it is. Yeah. So, recommend going because who knows how long is going to be allowed to be on a float and you're going to be allowed to be on board it. Just saying. So, yeah. All right.
Bitch.
Devil's Trap Podcast is a Don't Get It production. Meow.
Devil's Trap Podcast is part of the Ship It Studios podcast network. Thanks for listening to this week's episode of Devil's Trap Podcast. You can follow us on Instagram at Devil's Trap Podcast, Twitter at Devil's Trap Pod, or you can email us at devilstrap@devilstrappodcast.com. Don't forget to subscribe, leave reviews, and share with all your friends. We're at all your favorite podcast outlets and at devilstrappodcast.com. I'm Babe. Thanks for tuning in, and we'll see you next time.